If financial freedom is your goal, then learning about money isn't optional, it's required. This one skill determines whether money controls you or you control money. In today's video, we'll explore the basics of why becoming financially literate is such an important life skill to have, regardless of whether your goal is to have financial freedom or not. Hello, I'm Lani, a lawyer, entrepreneur, and mum of two living and working in the UK. I'm a second-generation Filipina, and this is my channel for second-generation Filipinos and adult children of immigrants. This channel is for all of us to learn, share, and discuss important things such as money, finances, pensions, business, investments, personal development, and anything that matters to you and our community. In my last video, we talked about the concept of financial freedom and how much you'd actually need to have in order to attain this. We learned that this is actually so much simpler than what we have been led to believe, and we don't need to earn millions in order to have financial freedom. But how do we actually do this? This is when most people start to get confused and overwhelmed, to the point where they don't take any action, and then, before they know it, the years have gone by and their goals have become a distant memory. The point of this video today is for us to become aware of and familiar with the concept of financial literacy and why this is such a vital skill to have, whether or not we want to have financial freedom. So, what is financial literacy? Financial literacy means knowing how to understand and manage your money wisely. In simple terms, it's knowing how to earn, save, spend, and invest money. It's understanding things like budgeting, debt, interest, and basic investing, and being able to make smart money decisions instead of guessing. You can think of it like this. Financial literacy is knowing the rules of money, so money doesn't control you. Other ways to look at it is, for example, if you know how interest works, you avoid bad debt. If you know how budgeting works, you don't run out of money. And if you know how investing works, your money can grow over time. Another and perhaps the most important way to look at money and being financially literate is to consider money as a person, a lifelong partner. For example, a healthy relationship looks like a couple being honest with each other, trusting each other, listening to each other, looking after each other, and talking to each other wholeheartedly. In other words, it's working together in partnership towards a common goal, which is to stay together through thick and thin, come what may. In a healthy relationship, you would encourage each other to grow. You're each other's cheerleaders, encouraging each other and supporting each other. You trust each other to go out with your friends and then to return home to each other, safe in the knowledge that you haven't cheated on each other. This is how we should be treating money. We shouldn't take it for granted. We should look after it with tender love and care. In other words, we shouldn't abuse it and take it for granted. We should expect it to also treat us with respect, the same way that we treat it with respect. So can you see how by shifting the way we think of money as a person, instead of something that just helps us to spend and pay for things, that your relationship to money becomes completely different? How does thinking about money as a partner, as a person, help us with learning about financial literacy? Well, it helps us enormously because when we see money as a partner, as a person, we then treat it with respect, love, and care, the way we should treat our life partners. This is when we take the time, effort, and energy to really nurture it, to find out ways how to care for it, how to manage it, how to make it grow, so that it grows with us and helps us in our daily lives. Can you feel how that may have completely shifted the way you think about money and wanting to learn about money, attracting money, keeping money, saving money, investing money, and growing money? Please don't get me wrong. I am absolutely not saying for you to idolize or praise money. For me, I believe that money is neutral. What I mean by that is that money was created from an idea, born out of necessity, to enable us to buy and sell goods and services between us, i.e., to make trading easier. Therefore, money is really a tool, and as with any tool, it can be used for good or evil, depending on the person who holds it. So if we think of money as a person, as a partner, we attract it, we date it, we wine and dine it, we love it, we respect it, but we wouldn't necessarily idolize it, right? Just like with a partner. Think about it. Before money, we used to have a system of bartering. This is when people traded goods directly. So for example, we would trade cows for chicken or fish for cloth, etc. But there were problems with bartering. For instance, not everyone had something that they could trade for something that they wanted or needed, and you couldn't always carry everything with you. Can you imagine bringing cows everywhere you go? It just wouldn't work, right? And this is when the idea of money came about. This is when humans started using objects that everyone agreed had value, like shells, beads, or metal coins. These objects could be saved, carried, and exchanged easily. So over time, shells and beads evolved into metal coins, then from coins to paper money, and then to plastic cards, and now to digital money. If you live in the UK or will be visiting London soon, I suggest visiting the British Museum and going to the Money Gallery there, where they display the history of money from around the world. It's so interesting to see this in real life and for us to come face to face with the reality that money is, like all things in life, something that was imagined and made up by humans more than 4,000 years ago. We'll explore the history of money and the idea of money in future videos. So please hit the like button and subscribe to this channel so you won't miss out on my future videos. So, why is financial literacy such an important skill to have? Because financial literacy is the skill that helps you use money as a tool to build the life you want. It's understanding how money works so you can control it instead of it controlling you. Let's look at two real-life examples. I think most of us know the comedians Kevin Hart and Russell Peters. They recently had interviews where they were talking about their money. So whatever our personal opinions are of these two personalities, please let's set these aside for now. The point here is we're learning about these two people who became successful as comedians and their different takes on how they are looking after their money now that they have both made their millions from comedy. So let's look at Russell Peters first. So for my Filipino lot, most of you would have heard of him because of his impressions of Filipinos, which are quite accurate. He was the first comedian to formally acknowledge Filipinos and to use his Filipino impressions in his comedy sketches. He was the pioneer before Joe Coy came about. Recently, he had an interview with Neal Brennan on his podcast called Blocks Podcast. I will give the link to that episode in the description box below. The key takeaways from that interview are: 1. Russell openly talked about his financial incompetence, where he discusses how he's managed money poorly at times and how his financial advisor gave him such poor advice, resulting in him selling his home during the pandemic for a lot less than how much it would have been now 5 years later. 2. Russell shared stories about spending and losses and he talked about how he spent money on things and lost large sums. He didn't know how much he was actually spending, but it was hundreds of thousands of dollars every month, which is why he was advised to sell his house in order to have some control over the money that was coming out. Russell actually said he was hemorrhaging money every month. 3. His spending habits affected his finances. His love for nice things and spending, paired with a lack of disciplined financial management, came up in the episode as part of how he handled and mishandled money. So we can see here how being financially illiterate, i.e., not knowing about how to budget, save, and invest money, in other words, not knowing how to look after his money, affected Russell's finances, not just in the short term, but also in the long term. Now let's take a look at Kevin Hart. So Kevin Hart recently had an interview with Stephen Bartlett on his program, Diary of a CEO. I'll also give the link to that episode in the description box below. Anyway, so in that episode, Kevin talks about becoming aware of him not just being a brand, but also being a business, meaning he is the business. Let me explain. So Kevin became aware that in order to make his money work for him, he needed to learn and familiarize himself with how businesses work. Kevin realized that he needed to have brand deals with companies, and in order to get brand deals, he needed to show these companies that he was worth investing in. In other words, he could make them earn more money through his association with the products that the company sells. And in turn, Kevin then earns his money via the company's sponsorship. So it's a win-win situation. He also became aware that financial success is built on habit, not hype. He credits consistency, structure, and work ethic more than raw talent. Talent may open doors, but discipline keeps them open. Kevin didn't rely on just comedy. He expanded into films, production, brand deals, ownership stakes, and partnerships. The lesson here is that having only one income stream is risky. Financial freedom requires multiple streams. Spend to scale and not to impress. Kevin also talks about reinvesting in teams, systems, and infrastructure rather than flashy lifestyle spending. You can see the contrast between him and Russell Peters when it comes to how they treat money. If we apply Robert Kiyosaki's teachings, Russell was buying liabilities, so things that did not earn him or make him money, while Kevin invested in assets, so paying for the right people, having systems in place, and the right infrastructure to ensure that his ecosystem of businesses continue to function and grow day in and day out. So the assets earn him money day in and day out. Another major theme that Kevin talked about is equity and ownership. So Kevin talked about moving from being paid for appearances to owning pieces of businesses and intellectual property. The lesson here is that long-term wealth comes from what you own and not just what you earn. Also, another key lesson was that Kevin is intentional about his behavior, image, and decisions because reputation directly affects earning power. In other words, he learned that being professional and taking his businesses seriously all show brands and companies that he is someone to trust and do business with. The lesson here is that your character and credibility are financial assets. This is similar to what Emma Greed teaches. She is the co-founder of Good American Genes, and she teaches that in everything you do, do it with excellence. Why? Because these things matter. People remember you for it. It also builds good habit because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Perhaps the most important lesson from his interview was when Kevin highlights the importance of understanding contracts, negotiations, and deal structures. The lesson here is that a lack of financial literacy can cost you millions, even when you're successful. The final two lessons are also taught by Dr. Ben Hardy, a US psychologist and author of books such as Be Your Future Self Now and 10x is Easier Than 2x. These lessons pertain to our environment and knowing the right people. In the interview, we learned that Kevin is intentional about distancing himself from negativity and limiting beliefs. I cannot stress enough the importance of our environment. There is a saying that goes, change your environment, change your life. Whether this is a physical environment or your mental environment, it doesn't matter, as the two eventually goes hand in hand, especially if you agree with the saying that your environment is a mirror, a result, a physical manifestation of what is going on in your mind. It's vitally important, therefore, that to become financially literate, you must learn or study what it means to become one. Therefore, who you listen to and what you read and watch influences how much you earn and how far you go. This is where we learn of the other lesson, of the importance of the who, not how. In other words, it's not about how you will get there, but who will help you to get to where you want to go. In the interview, Kevin openly credits advisors, executives, and partners who challenge him and fill his knowledge gaps. It's so important to listen to the right people who live and breathe the life you want to live. Not the blag artists, not the meddling relatives who love to talk, but who have never built and run successful businesses, and not the naysayers who have never achieved anything meaningful in their lives. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment below. What do you think of the idea of money as a person, as a partner? Has this made you think of money in a different way? What do you think about studying and learning more about money? Has this been something you've been wanting to do? Or perhaps you've already started reading books on this topic, or maybe listening to various podcasts, etc. If you have, perhaps you can share with us the key lessons that you've learned. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.